All right, here is day 2 notes for the parabola. Now I know I started this top section with all of my classes, but I know 4th hour I did want to be a little bit more specific. I think I actually made an error with you guys, which I feel terrible about, but I want to explain this a little bit more. Okay, so when we're looking at our vertical parabola, which this is what we've worked with before, so this is our vertex form, and anytime we have vertex form, right away we're able to find our vertex because this is our h value and this is our k value. Okay, if we have standard form, this is where our h is also known as our x value, and this is where our k is also known as our y value. Okay, so in order to find our h or our x value when we have a quadratic, you can use x equals the opposite of b over 2a. And if you have this information, you have our x, we figure that out, we plug that back in, and then we get our y. So in order to get our y, we're going to plug that in. Okay, so the vertex in this case then, it would be the opposite of b over 2a. But again, it's going to be, once you figure out this information, it's your h and k, or if you do want to think about it as your x and y, whatever you like best. Okay? So horizontal parabola, this is where things are going to be changing a little bit. Now our x and our y values are going to switch. So our vertex form, we have x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. Okay, so things are switching around a little bit. If we have a positive a value, we are going to open to the right. And if we have a negative a value, we're going to open left. And the vertex, though, will still be hk. But when we were looking at this vertex form, anytime we looked at our h value, it was always the opposite, okay, of whatever's in the quantity with that x. And then our k value was the same. So over here it's switching a little bit where our h value will be exactly the same, but our k value will be opposite. It's as if we were taking this quantity, setting it equal to 0, and once we do that, we'd move k over so it would become positive. So it's the opposite of what's in there. Okay, so standard form, this is where it gets a little bit trickier. We have x equals a, and we have y squared, b times y plus c. And here is where I think 4th hour I made an error, and again, I am so sorry. But your h again is going to be as if it's your x value, okay, if we're looking at the x and the y in this standard form. And then our k value is dealing with our y. But in this case, if you look at the standard form over here, we had to solve for our x, plug it back in, and then we got our y. Okay, over here we're going to solve for our y. So we're starting with y equals the opposite of b over 2a. And once we have this information, then we plug that in. Okay, so we start with y, plug that in, then we get our x value. So our vertex is still, again, hk, or if you like to think of the xy, that's completely fine too. So xy. All right, I'm going to scroll down to the 2 examples. Now these 2 examples here are very similar to what we have already done. So this should be a review, and if not, then no problem, but you hopefully will catch on to this pretty quick. Okay, so here we actually have vertex form. So this is my h value, this is my k value, because I know this is a vertical parabola because we're starting with our y. Okay, and we want to always kind of figure out what's our a value, whatever that coefficient is in front. So in this case, our a value is 1. So I know that this is going to open up. It's a positive value, so it's going to open up. And this is also telling me that I'm going to go up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1, and then up 1 to the left 1, and then that will be my stretch of how I draw. Okay, so first I want to find what my vertex is, and I'm going to do the opposite of this 3. So my vertex is a -3, And then this k value stays the same, so it's a -4. So I'm going to go back 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's my vertex. And since my a value is 1, I'm going up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the left 1, and then 1, 2. And I'm also moving this way. And I'm going to just draw my parabola. Oh, that's horrible. But there we go. Okay, so now that I have this drawn, I can figure out domain, range, and axis of symmetry. Okay, so again, domain, we're scanning the x-axis. Okay, where is this graph going? From the left to the right. So it's coming from -infinity, and it's going to +infinity. It's going to continue to stretch, 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 and this way as well, until it goes, it will just continue forever. The range, though, remember, is going to be the y-axis, and we're starting from the bottom, going to the top. So it's actually starting down at -4, and I'm going to use a bracket here because it's actually stopping there, and it is on -4, but then it will continue on to infinity. So for the range, you're always starting bottom to top and left to right for domain. And then the axis of symmetry is going to be this line that is drawn directly through the vertex that's creating a symmetry here. And it's a vertical line, it's Vux, so it's always going to be x equals and then whatever the x value is in the vertex, so -3. Okay. For example 2, you can either complete the square or you could do the opposite of b over 2a, whichever you like. I'm going to just use x equals the opposite of b over 2a. Okay, so because I have my standard form here, 2a, there we go. So the opposite of my b value is a +4, and then 2 times my a value is a -1. So then I know that this is going to be 4 divided by -2 is a -2. So that's my x. Once I have my x, I got to plug that in and substitute to figure out what my y is. So I'm going to have y equals negative, and then we have our 2 squared, -4 times -2 plus 2. So -2, or I have my negative, and that's going to stay on the outside. So I'm going to look at 2, square it, which is 4. So that's going to be a -4. And then -4 times -2, we're going to add 8 and add 2. So -4 plus 8 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So my x value, or my h, is going to be -2. And my y value, or my k, is a 6. So I'm going to go back -2 and up 6. And now I need to figure out what is going on with my parabola, how is it going to open? And again, you're always looking at the a value. So since it's a negative, a is -1, I'm going to go down. And I'm going to move down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the left 1. Then I'm drawing my parabola. That's lab check knocking on the door. All right, there we go. Yeah. All right, so now we got to figure out domain, range, and axis of symmetry. The domain, again, left to right. This is going to continue to grow and get larger and larger. So it's coming from -infinity, going to +infinity. And then the range, we're always starting from the bottom, and this is going down. So it's coming from -infinity, going up until 6. And it will be a point on 6. So that's a bracket and that's a parenthesis. Okay, and then axis of symmetry again is going directly through, creating symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is going to be at my x value of -2. All right, I'm going to create one more video for the next page. So just look for it on the YouTube.